Mrs. Jones has it rough. She's a fourth grade teacher at a local elementary school, and her students are out of control. Her students are constantly talking out, not following classroom rules, and are always out of their seats. Mrs. Jones is at her wit's end because she feels like she can't get anything done when she's constantly correcting students. She's desperate for a solution to her unmanageable classroom. Does this scene sound at all familiar to you? Unfortunately, there are classrooms like this all over the country. We as educators need to start looking at classroom management from a different perspective. We need to start involving our students in the management system. Would you believe me if I told you there was a management strategy that has been proven to decrease disruptive behaviors in the classroom? I want to tell you about the token economy. Now, a token economy is really not as intimidating as it sounds. In simplest terms, a token economy is a classroom management strategy in which students earn tokens for showing positive behavior and can then turn in those tokens for prizes or activities they enjoy. It's very similar to our economy. We earn money for doing our job, and then we can spend that money on things that we want or need. There was actually a study done by Philcheck that explored the use of a token economy in a preschool classroom. When this system was implemented consistently, disruptive behaviors greatly decreased in the classroom. So not only are token economies backed up by research, but they work in real classrooms. So let's go over the steps to creating a token economy and putting that economy into practice. The very first thing that you want to do is choose the behavior that you want to see decrease or increase. What do you really want to see your students do more of in the classroom? What do you want them to do less of? You need to be very specific in your behavior so that anybody would be able to know what behavior that you are looking at. Now, before you start your token economy, you really want to take some data. Data is a word that we use a lot in education, but you want to find out how often students are actually engaging in the behavior that you're looking at. How often are they out of their seats? How often are they talking out? If you're wanting those behaviors to decrease, if you're wanting a behavior to increase, you need to see how infrequently are they engaging in this behavior. This is going to give you a good baseline to determine later on down the road if your intervention's actually working or not. The next thing you want to do is to create a token board, and this can take on a variety of forms. It can be a punch card that every time you see them doing the behavior, you punch a hole in it, and once they fill up that card, then they're able to turn that in for a reinforcer. Kind of similar to what you see when you go to maybe a coffee shop and you're earning a free drink. Every time you buy a drink, you get a punch in your card. This could also be a ticket. Every time you see them engage in a behavior, you give them a ticket. Or it can be a small board that they can actually physically attach tokens to, so they can get a good visual about how close they are to earning their prize at the end of their card. After you have created that token board in whatever form you want it to look at, you need to choose your reinforcers. What are your students going to try to earn? What are they going to get out of positively engaging in the behaviors that you're asking them to show? Talk to your students. Find out what they want to earn. The more ownership they have in the program, the more successful it's going to be. So as much as you can involve them in planning and implementing this process, the more successful you're going to be. After you've decided on your reinforcers, you need to decide how many tokens do your students need to earn before they get that prize, before they get to engage in that activity. Initially, you're going to want to give these rewards frequently. The students need to see that there's a payoff, that they're actually getting something out of this. As time progresses and as the system goes on, you can make that time a little bit longer, that they have to earn more tokens before they can get that prize. If the prize is bigger, maybe it's worth more tokens. If the prize is smaller, it could be worth less tokens. But you really want those students to see that there's a payoff for this, that it's really worth it to engage in these behaviors, and it's not as worth it to engage in the behaviors you don't want to see. Another thing that you want to consider is, are students going to be able to lose tokens? This is called a response cost. Are there behaviors that they're going to engage in that you could take tokens away? That's a choice that you need to make about your token economy. and you need to be consistent with that. All right, so now that we've talked about how we set up our token economy, well, let's talk about how we use the token economy. You really want to make sure that you explain the token economy to your students. Let them know the behaviors that you're looking for and how they can earn tokens. You want to get them excited about this process. You need to let them know what they're going to be able to earn. This is where they'll really get excited. What can I get with these tokens? And then you also need to let them know, is it possible to lose tokens? And exactly how do they lose tokens? We don't want this to be a surprise to them. When you see a student engage in the behavior you want to see, you need to provide that student with a token. Like I said, initially those reinforcements need to be provided frequently to show that immediate payoff in the form of a token. And as the system progresses, you can change your criteria if you need to. When the students have met the criteria to earn a reinforcer, once they've earned enough tokens, you need to allow them to cash in their tokens for that reinforcer. Be sure that you have a designated time set aside when the students will be able to access the reinforcers, and be consistent with the reinforcers. All right, so you've been doing your token economy for a couple of weeks now, and you want to see if it's really working. So in order to determine if this intervention is working for your students or not, you need to take data. Be constantly taking data. Are behaviors increasing? Are behaviors decreasing? This can help you really decide if you need to continue with the token economy as it is, if it's working, or if it's not working as you would want it to. What do I need to look at to change? Some things that if you're finding that they're not engaging in the behaviors that you want to see as often, you might look at how often you're providing the tokens. Are you giving them often enough that is worth it to them? We really want this to be worth it to our students. How long do they have to wait for those reinforcers? It might be too long of a time and they just kind of give up and say, I'm never going to get it anyway, so why even try? What reinforcers are you giving them? Do the students want to earn those things? Again, this goes back to talking to your students. If they're being able to work for things that they really want, they're going to be more willing to work for them. And then the definition of your behavior. Is the behavior that you're looking at, did you define it specifically enough? If you're not really sure, yeah, well, maybe this one should have gotten a token, I'm not really sure. If you're not sure, then your definition's not specific enough, and you need to go back and think about exactly what behavior you want them engaging in, and make sure they know that specifically, and anyone who is able to give tokens knows specifically what requires a token. Any one of those factors can impact how successful your token economy is. Now, let's think back to Mrs. Jones. Do you remember her from the beginning of our talk? Well, she actually recently implemented a token economy in her classroom, and she had fantastic results. At first, she was a little skeptical that a system like this would actually work with her students. She thought that they were way too out of control to rein in, and she really wasn't sure that a token economy was the answer to her problem. But boy, was she wrong. After a short period of time of consistently using the token economy, Mrs. Jones has a completely different classroom. The students are motivated to show positive behaviors in the classroom, discipline referrals have decreased, and Mrs. Jones is finding it easier to get her job of teaching done. It's a better environment for the students. It's a better environment for the teacher. You really have nothing to lose by trying a token economy in your classroom, and it's really not as tricky or intimidating as it sounds. You really might be surprised at how well your students respond to the system. Thank you.